me love how people turn humanity, something that's actually aggression against Jews, into humanity. That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing serious intimidation of the Jewish community. Ed Husic here complaining that Sydney Theatre Company actors should be allowed to protest on stage, intimidate Jewish audiences. He says doctors should be able to join a petition against Israel's action in Gaza without any consequences at all. And you know all those journalists who signed the petition that said Israel should be treated with the same scepticism as Hamas, a terror group. Well, Ed Husic is outraged that they've been taken off writing stories about the war over at the Sydney Morning Herald. He wants there to be biased reporting of the war in the media. The Executive Council of Australian Jury co-CEO Alex Rifchin told Joe Kelly in The Australian that Ed Husic should pause and think how a Jewish audience member would feel when a performer comes out wearing the same scarf donned by people who just massacred, raped and abducted Jews on a horrific scale. Alex said that rather than engaging in ugly gesture politics intended to divide our society and make Jewish performers and audiences feel excluded, these artists should donate their earnings to credible aid agencies working for genuine peace. Instead, they want to intimidate our community. Alex Rifchin says that Ed Husic should reconsider his support for these misguided bully tactics, because that's what we're seeing. We are seeing serious bullying of the Jewish community on the streets and on social media, and they do not discriminate against someone's age. It doesn't matter if they're a school child, if they're 13-year-old girls in their school uniform, or if they're adults. We're joining me now to discuss Sky News hosts Paul Murray and Liz Storer.
Hello, mate.
Welcome to you both. Liz, you know, what do you think about someone like Ed Husic, who dresses this up as humanity with Gaza? We all care about innocent Palestinians, just like we do about innocent Jews. But that's not what we're seeing unfold in Sydney and Melbourne and other major cities, not just in Australia, but globally.
And he's really playing the victim card really strongly here, because the three actors that he's referring to have not been disciplined. Nothing whatsoever have been done. They haven't lost their jobs. So him saying, oh, you know, people are being basically persecuted. No, we do have freedom of speech here. You did get to express yourself. Unfortunately, you did it while you were on the job, okay? So surgeons don't get to stop practicing in the middle of a surgery. Lawyers don't get to stand in court and be like, well, actually, I'm just going to unfurl the Palestinian flag right now. No, you're on your employer's time, and that's why there was such an outrage over the Sydney Theatre Company furore. But those actors themselves have not been persecuted in any way. They got to express themselves. They're sailing on free. The journalists that you've already touched on, obviously that is part of journalistic integrity. They weren't stood down in any way. They were simply taken, oh, you've revealed a bias, we're taking you off those particular stories. That's all fair.
And that's only at the Herald, not even at the Guardian or anywhere else.
Exactly. So for him to then come out and call this the new McCarthyism, do me a favour, like that is an insult to the leftists of long ago who were genuinely persecuted. And you're right, to make this a bargaining chip about, oh, we're on the side of humanity and therefore you're now persecuting people for not remaining silent about it, it's just untrue.
And in fact, we're seeing the opposite. Not only are people not being disciplined, but people who break the law aren't being charged. People who seriously break the law on the streets with hateful protests, you know, at the Crown Plaza Hotel, no one is being charged.
Not a single arrest.
Even if it's clear violation of hate speech laws. But Paul, you know, Australians are sick of people who have nothing to do with this, doctors, school teachers deciding to protest, take kids out of school. And what we're seeing here is a member of the Albanese government frontbench actually encourage this type of behaviour.
Yeah, what I find, I mean, look, we're all going to be on a unity ticket about being close to free speech absolutists. The problem with this situation is that we have seen in the past couple of years that if someone decided to use their job to speak against what the prevailing logic was at the time, well, they either got sacked, cancelled, not invited back. You know, it's pretty obvious what people happen if you were in the wrong place on the COVID narrative, right?
Yeah.
I would like to see a free speech country that turns around and sees a scenario where if the actors want to say something, then the Jewish audience member can stand up and scream back. Nothing happens to either. But we know what would happen, which was that the audience member, if they stood up, would be banned and never allowed to return to the theatre again. But equally so, we don't live in a free speech absolutist society. We have a society that makes, quite understandably, a series of things that are acceptable and not acceptable. Wearing the garb or screaming the chants of the people who went and killed on October the 7th, just because it's December 7, January 7 or February 7, doesn't mean it is not as offensive as it was on October 8 when the terms were being screamed out the front of the Opera House. But as you know, that now is up for debate. If you turn around and say what you heard, what you saw on that tape, oh, now that's in dispute. What you are seeing here is the multifaceted way that people are able to gaslight you about what you can see with your own eyes for very obvious reasons. We all know the obvious and technical differences between Israel as a state and Jews as people around the world, right? We know the difference. But when you turn around and you write on a school kid's cricket net that Israel equals genocide, and it's one that's used by Jewish schools, it's pretty obvious what message you're trying to send and whom you're trying to send it to.